Hey YouTube, Kier Twig here, bringing you all my Ice Barrier Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for March 2020. A lot of you requested an update to the Ice Barrier deck, and one thing a lot of people you have to know about this deck is that it actually never truly got its time in the spotlight. It was always that underrated deck that really just couldn't keep up with any meta at the current time, and I still say it's that kind of fun deck that you can try and use against your opponent, saying, hey, I beat you with Ice Barriers, or I'm playing Ice Barriers, and they'll get a good laugh out of it because pretty much everyone knows that Ice Barriers are just that one type of deck that just had the cards, but they never really amounted up to much. Maybe one day we'll get that surprise support, and then boom, Ice Barriers will be out on top again. But until then, we'll always dream, and I'll continue to do updates on the deck just to show what you can play for the deck at the time. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the bigger monsters, I like to run two General Grenard of the Ice Barrier. There are a couple of the generals that definitely do help with the overall consistency with the plays for the Ice Barrier deck. During your main phase, you can normal summon one Ice Barrier monster in addition to your normal summoner set this turn. This effect can only be used once per turn. So being a boss monster, he's pretty powerful with his own attack stats, having more attack than a good amount of the synchro monsters you run in the deck, but also just being able to have that additional normal summon gives you one more resource with your Ice Barrier monsters in the deck. That's why I'd like to run two of him, just so you can have this play. Most of the time you do have to either set him up in the graveyard, then special summon him back, or have to tribute summon him out using some of your other monsters. And then for the other general, I run two General Raiho of the Ice Barrier. Probably one of my more favorite ones. Doesn't have as many attack points as Grenard, but only needs one tribute to summon it out. When an effect resolves that was activated by your opponent's effect monster on the field, they can discard one card. If they do not, that effect is negated. It's not a once per turn either, so as long as you have General Raiho set up on the field, your opponent's effects will get negated for their cards, unless they discard the card, which can eat away at their hand resources. So just setting this card up defensively turn one can be the best play to go off of for your Ice Barrier cards, which is why I like to run two of this and two General Grenard just to have some more extra boss monsters in the deck. Also, if your opponent somehow locks you out of your extra deck or just special summoning in general, you have these tributes to get out onto the field for some bigger Ice Barrier monsters. And then for some of the smaller Ice Barrier monsters, I run three Prior of the Ice Barrier. Now, this is probably the best Ice Barrier in the whole deck. If you control a face-up Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You cannot special summon any level 5 or higher monsters the turn you use this effect. You contribute this card to target one Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard except Prior of the Ice Barrier and special summon that target. So it works with the lower level plays that the Ice Barrier deck can do. It also works very, very well with the link plays you can do in this deck, being able to link summon out other cards since it's not limited to those plays to set up a bigger link board to then go for your other Ice Barrier plays that you can do in the deck. But just remember that with Prior, the Ice Barrier special summon effect, it does limit you out to those plays, but can still help with some of the other Ice Barrier monsters, especially for the tribute plays to get out some of the generals in the deck. But that extra special summon definitely does come in handy also. And I also run three Defender of the Ice Barrier, being one of your level 3 tuners. While you control another face-up Ice Barrier monster, monsters your opponent control cannot declare an attack if their attack is greater than or equal to this card's defense. So just a good way to play defensively against your opponent using your Defender of the Ice Barrier. Having it for the tuner is also the best option, but most of the time your opponent's going to have a lot of monsters that are over the 1600 attack. So being able to rely on Defender of the Ice Barrier for defense definitely does come in handy. Setting up that play with Prior for the special summon as well means you can just play with that defense against your opponent in the next turn. If these two cards are still both on the field, be able to use them for some other resources in the deck. And I also run three Shock Troops of the Ice Barrier. With this one, you contribute this card to select one face-up water monster on the field, destroy it, and add one Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. So the destruction effect can work if it's one of your opponent's water monsters. It can even work for one of your water monsters, and then destroying it and adding an Ice Barrier monster, destroying yours especially, gets rid of a big minus on your end for the whole setup of just searching out an Ice Barrier monster. All the better if your opponent has a water monster, especially, but still, you need that search, and we're just going off of the resources you can use with this deck. With this one also being a level 3 non-tuner, you can use it for some of the synchro summons of some of your other ones, including Defender of the Ice Barrier and a bunch of the other ones we run in the deck also. And for some of the one-ofs, I run one Pilgrim of the Ice Barrier, one Secret Guards of the Ice Barrier, and one Dudark of the Ice Barrier. Being a level 2 tuner was the main reason I decided to run Dudark. If the only face-up monster you control are level 2 or lower, this card can attack your opponent directly. It has that direct damage, which sometimes comes in handy with Secret Guards. Face-up Ice Barrier monsters you control cannot be targeted by the effects of your opponent's card effects. Play more defensively with your Defender when you have that card set up as well. And Pilgrim of the Ice Barrier cannot be destroyed by battle with monsters within more than 1900 attack. So all these cards play defensively, but they also work with a lot of other different searches, being searchable with some of the other spells in the Ice Barrier deck, and then having the different card names when we get to some of the other cards also for your setup. And to finish off the monsters, the only non-Ice Barrier monster I'm running for the main deck is White Stingray. I really, really do like this card in the deck. It helps with so many of your plays. You can special summon this card from your hand by discarding one water monster. You can only special summon White Stingray once per turn this way, and if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can treat it as a tuner this turn. You can only use this effect of White Stingray once per turn. So you can special summon this card for the discard of a Ice Barrier monster, which are all the other water monsters you're running, to special summon this card out. Having that special summon, you can still have your normal summon available to get out General Raiho of the Ice Barrier with that tribute, and then set up one of your better general monsters on the field. Or if you're able to special summon it from the graveyard as well, you can even set up some of your other Ice Barrier plays, making this card the tuner. Then you can use some of your other non-tuners to go for, let's say, with the level 4 and 3 play with your Shock Troops of the Ice Barrier, to then go into cards like Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, or you can swap it out for one of your level 2 plays with it being the tuner, and then go for cards like Bryonic or even your DeLorean of the Ice Barrier. Or if you're able to hit the consistent numbers of these three on the field, you can even go for Trishula. So White Stingray definitely does help for all those plays, but even when it's the non-tuner option, you have some of the tuners you run in the deck as well to do basically the same amount of the combo plays you set up with all your different cards on the field. So White Stingray is very viable with all the different plays you can do in the deck. That's why I like to run 3 of this also. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. Now, Ice Barriers definitely got one of the better-handed cards, their own E-Emergency Call with Medallion of the Ice Barrier. You add one Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. It has no limits on what you can search, so you can literally just search out any of the Ice Barrier monsters you run in the deck, which is great when you open up the White Stingray play, being able to have that set up with whatever other Ice Barrier you need for your synchro play, as long as you have the Medallion of the Ice Barrier for that search, is the added plus as well. So you definitely need to run 3 of this card, since it's just your go-to card for any of your plays you may want to go for the extra deck. And I also run 2 Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier. You reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names in your hand. Select one card your opponent controls, destroy the opponent's card, and special summon 1 Ice Barrier monster from your hand. Now, the big play is to get out your General Grunard of the Ice Barrier, revealing this along with 2 other differently named Ice Barrier monsters. Popping one of your opponent's cards, then setting up this one will give you the additional normal summon of hopefully one of the other different named Ice Barrier monsters you have in your hand. So Magic Triangle definitely does help with that setup, just needing the Ice Barrier monsters with different names. We're also running plenty of different ones in the deck, so it's all the benefit of this card when you open up with it. And then just consistency with some of the other water monsters. I run 3 Moray of Greed. If you want to open up your White Stingray for your plays, and you have some of the other water monsters in your hand, just being able to shuffle it back into the deck to draw 3 makes up for this. You don't plus, you don't minus with Moray of Greed, so that draw power just all comes together for you to have hopefully some better cards in your hand for you to use. And for more recycle, I run 2 Salvage. You target 2 water monsters with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Add those targets to your hand. White Stingray, Defender, you name it, a good amount of our monsters in this deck. Aside from the actual generals, I believe is the only thing. Salvage can add them back to your hand and just get resources back to reuse as well. Even the discard for White Stingrays. Special summon can be achieved with just the activation of a Salvage, giving you the 2 cards from your graveyard back to your hand to use. And I thought about which of the aquarium cards. Set and Stage are probably the best ones. Set gives you power for the water and gives you options to special summon aqua monsters from your graveyard back onto the field, with plenty of options in the deck for aqua monsters as well. Stage prevents them from being destroyed by battle, so that'd be another card to consider putting in along with this card. I'll show what I would more than likely put in as a replacement for those if I were to add them. For some of the other one-ups, I run 1 Foolish Burial, more setup for the graveyard for cards to special summon back, 1 Monster Reborn for special summoning more ice barriers, especially the generals from the graveyard to the field, and the 1 Reasoning. You run so many different level monsters in this deck that you'll definitely keep your opponent guessing by which card they're going to reveal, and if they don't declare one of the higher level ones and you reveal them, it's just another easy special summon onto the field. And I also run the 3 Call by the Grave just to stop your opponent's hand traps. Once again, you need these monster effects to go off if you want to have at least some sort of consistency with the deck plays. So 3 Call by the Grave, definitely I would say needed if you're not going to go the hand trap option, since I want to stick to mostly the water plays you do with all the different monsters in the deck. And then for the traps, I run 2 White Howling. With this one, if you control a water monster, target 1 spell in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do for the rest of this turn, negate all spell effects on your opponent's field. So shutting down your opponent's spell effects definitely can be a big problem for them. If you didn't want to try and run the White Howling in the deck, which I definitely do like for the lockdown play, you can try putting in another Aquarium set and 1 Aquarium stage for that protection and power boost for all your different water monsters. And lastly, I run the 3 Call of the Haunted. This is just useful for special summoning back your big boss monsters. If you send them to the graveyard for some of your link plays, being able to summon them back to the field with this is an actual big boost for sure that I like. It's why I don't run back to the front. You don't want them in defense as much as attack, so you can just go and finish off your opponent with your attack plays. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. For the Synchro monsters, I run 1 Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Being the big boss monster of the deck can really, take away a lot of your opponent's cards easily with the banish. Bryonic for its bounce effect, and Gungnir with its once per turn discard to destroy cards in your opponent's field up to the cards you discarded. And 1 Deloran, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier. With this, you can return any number of face-up cards you control to the owner's hand. For each card returned by this card gains 500 attack. So return any number of face-up cards you control. Definitely a big boost, and then just a recycle of a lot of the cards also. Also 1 Coral Dragon, another level 6 Synchro play, and 1 Crystron Amatrex for the level 5 play. With the Book of Moon effect with this is an added bonus for sure. And then for the Link monsters, I run 2 Miss Starboy, especially with your play to go into Prior with the special summon. It locks you out of the special summon for the level 5 or higher monsters, but the Miss Starboys are a different story, and these can just help to boost up all your other different Ice Barrier monsters. And then for the rest of the Link monsters, I run 1 Cross Sheep, especially with the Synchro plays, it's a big boost for sure. 1 Underclock Taker, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, and 1 Borreload Dragon. And then for the Exceed plays, when you can make it happen, Silent Under Arc or Abyss Dweller definitely do help as well with the water monsters we're running in the deck. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. As always, I'm always taking recommendations on other decks you'd like to see for the update for this, but the main play with the Ice Barrier deck is obviously to get out your main Synchro monsters, which I would say is definitely helped out with the fact that we have White Stingray in the deck to set up all the different plays, with it being also able to be a tuner, and then all the different level Ice Barrier monsters to assist with the level 6, 7, and 9 monsters we run in the deck also. But that is it. Like I said, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.